10 things that a business person needs to know, not just a marketer.
What was the internal trigger, that quiet moment when you realize I need to reinvent my entire career path?
Kartika, who's my publisher, she read those two and she said, not only do I want the other 8, I want 3 books. How do you create the same visual in the minds of the people who are going to help you get there?
Welcome to the Knowledge Series. I'm Hrishi K. And for this introduction, I'm just going to go scriptless. Let me take you back to a boy who had just passed out of his 12th standard and entered first year of college, and who had just started freelancing as an anchor. And this is the early 90s that I'm talking about. And a dashing, handsome marketing manager from a cola company, Pepsi, hires him to compare 2 events. One is called Cornucopia, the other is called Pepsi Mr. and Miss High School. That boy is me, and that dashing, handsome marketing manager today is the CEO and MD of Tata Play, the one and only Harit Nagpal. We go back a long way, and I can't be happier to see you.
Seriously, we were both young. I was young, you were younger, and fun times, really fun times. Long time ago, more than, I'd say 30 years ago almost.
30 years ago. And you know, the beauty is, my boss Ramesh, who you worked with,
Yeah.
Ramesh is talking about the importance of events now. But you guys realized it at such an early age, that activations and on-ground experiential was the way forward. Yeah.
We did a lot. We did a lot that time. And, that was the only way to engage with the masses in those days. And we were doing an event a day almost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Lovely. And a lot of us owe our success to those early days. There was Roshan Abbas, there was myself, whole breed of performers, to be entrepreneurs, to be radio jockeys, all of them that Harit and his team really, really nurtured. All right, let's talk about early life. You started in chemical engineering.
Yeah.
You then moved through FMCG giants like Lakme, Marico, Pepsi. Then you make a massive pivot into retail and telecom. What was the internal trigger, that quiet moment when you realize I need to reinvent my entire career path?
So it's a combination of 2 things. One, the companies that I chose, they may sound like sequential names, or the companies that chose me, let's put it that way. But there's a pattern towards them. The first one was kind of luxury for those days. The second one was coconut oil and cooking oils. And then you went to colas. Now, each one of them, the consumption pattern and the reach was more complex and deeper. So you graduated from a not very widely distributed luxury product to more widely distributed coconut oil, but bought once a month, to a even widely distributed complex cola, which 80% of it sold in 3 months of the year in glass bottles, which had to be brought back. So life got more and more complex. So that's the first part. The second part was, when we graduated from college, all you could sell, or all you could join at that point in time, was a company selling soap or a company selling paints. Because all the services, whether it is airlines or hotels or insurance or banking or you name it, everything was in a public sector company, a public sector monopoly or a duopoly kind of a situation. So you didn't have an option of going into services. It is only in the mid-90s that services started coming up slowly. Privatization of hospitals, banking, insurance, telecom, all these kind of things. So that was the first opportunity we had to go into services. And we grabbed it.
Lovely. So Pivot is the book. For those of you who missed the beginning, we talked about Adapt and Pivot very briefly. Please go get it. It's in all online as well as on-ground stores. In Pivot, you talk about rejecting binary choices and finding the third option. So looking back at that move from Vodafone to leading Tata Sky in 2010, What was the third option you saw that others in the industry perhaps missed, Harit?
See, telecom was just a pipe. It was a service. So when you move from physical to let's go back to the move from physical to services and then making the services more complex. Frankly, uh, physical goods, FMCG as you call them, they start with somebody buying packaging material, raw material, manufacturing a product, putting into a clearing and forwarding agent, taking to a distributor, to a retailer, and when the customer is bathing or shampooing with the product, the entire supply chain that produced and distributed it could be sleeping in their beds. Service requires at least 3 or 4 functions to work simultaneously, from conception to production to delivery, and when the customer is actually using your product, everyone involved in the supply chain needs to be sitting in the kitchen, because it's a live delivery, virtual delivery of an experience and not a physical product which has been produced in the past. That's the difference between selling a soap, which is a physical soap with which you bathe, and selling a soap, which is what you watch. So that's so that the first service business that I really got into was really a pipe. Now we're talking about a pipe with content in it. And that was the pivot.
So the London Business School still teaches a case study on Tata Sky's response to disruptive technology. And incidentally, Harit co-authored that. What's one lesson from the real-time battle that leaders in any industry facing AI, artificial intelligence, or digital disruption should never, ever forget, Harit?
Basics, basics, basics. In fact, my reason for writing the first book was that anywhere I go, I went, sorry, I would talk about the basics and they'd say, Nani, the world has changed. And I said, look, Newton's law has not changed. Archimedes' principle has not changed. Schrodinger wave equation has not changed. The 4 P's of marketing have not changed. These are basic laws on which everything stands. And we say, no, the times have changed. These things don't apply. Have the 4 P's of marketing changed? No, they haven't. So, which is why I said somebody has to remind people about the 4 P's of marketing, and which is why I actually sat down and first wrote 10 pages on what are the 10 things that a business person needs to know. Not just a marketer, but a business person needs to know or needs to be mindful of while doing a business. And then what are the 10 questions that he needs to answer from his business, which actually talk to him about the health of his business. And these questions are very yes and no. There is no yes but or no but, because most of the time that but that we use after the yes or a no whittles down the whole or justifies your current stance of not following the basics. So we say, no, you don't have a choice of saying yes, but, or no, but. It is either yes or a no. And whoever I gave that list to probably scored a 4 on 10 or a 3.5 on 10, literally, on those. So that prompted me to write that book called Adapt. And I first actually started writing that book. And first 2 chapters I wrote, and they turned out to be like textbook, something that I wouldn't read myself, something that I hated in my college. I said, isko to koi nahi padega. This is not going to be read by anybody. So then I converted that into a story, like, your mother used to feed you milk, and with the milk she would give you 2 cookies or put some chocolate in the milk, and, you drank it for the chocolate, not for the milk.
Yeah, correct.
And that milk finally went into your body and settled in your bones and, strengthened them, probably. But you didn't drink the milk for the milk. So I said, let me sugarcoat this milk and put some chocolate into it. So I created stories, 10 stories, 10 different industries, 10 different countries. None of them is based in India. None of them is based in the industries that I've worked in, just to camouflage the characters that were there, but they're real stories. I've seen, witnessed them myself. Wrote 2 stories and went to a publisher and said, boss, read this. If you like them, I'll write the other 8. Otherwise, I'm not wasting my time. I'm very clear. And Kartika, who's my publisher, she read those 2 and she said, not only do I want the other 8, I want 3 books. She was very kind. I said, okay, fine, let me sit down and start writing. And that's where the basics, that's where the question that you asked, that what is it that people forget? They forget the basics. They say, oh, abhi AI aa gaya. Abhi sab kuch change ho jayega. AI is only going to facilitate things. It is not going to change the basics of business. And if you forget the basics of business, your cake is sitting on thin air. You need a foundation for the cake.
Very beautifully put. You know, I have to tell you what he's referring to. In the book Adapt, after every chapter, he's put this questionnaire where you can only say yes or no, which is a tick mark format. Cut to Pivot, which is the second book, a beautiful piece of work again, where he says, take a pencil and write over these lines, literally like, you know, A4 paper with lines that we used to use in our schools and colleges to write back in the good old days. And he says, you know, you fill them in. And I think when you're doing that, when you're writing down things, or even when you're doing a yes or no, the fact that you're reliving a lot of the stuff that you're writing down, it's like shrinks, right? They tell you to always write down what the problem is or what you're going through. And I think those are wonderful facets of both
The
the
reason
book.
for that, Rishi, is what's the purpose of reading? When we read, we pause in between at moments where something rings a bell or you want to reflect. Now, I'm not leaving that reflection to chance. I'm narrating some part of my life as to this was the situation and this is what I did. And then you take a pause and say, hey, did you have a situation like this in your life? And, or if you did, what did you do? Or if you get that tomorrow, what would you do? So that you formulate your own plan in the same situation, because the same situation can't have one way of being tackled. Like you said, between 2 choices, pick the third. What's your third choice in a situation like that? It does 2 things. One, it forces you to reflect. Second, it breaks the book into bite-sized pieces. In today's day and age, people are not, attention spans have kind of reduced. You know, the Reels generation, as we call it. So this gives you a natural break in the journey and says, okay, now reflect. After you reflected, you've written a few words there. It served the purpose of reflection and it's given you a break and you're ready for the next 2 pages. And that was the purpose of those questions.
Yeah, and like he said, he set stories in Adapt various countries. I love the one in particular about Chris Gale's home island, which is Jamaica.
Yeah. I've never been to Jamaica, by the way.
Oh, you haven't. And the other one I love is the story set in Dhaka, which is lovely.
And when I wrote the story in Dhaka, this is the first story. I'd never been to Dhaka. I went to Dhaka after writing that story. So, you know, a lot of the 10 places that I've written set those stories in, I've probably not been to 4 of them. But when you write a story, you have to get the names right, you have to get the roads right, you have to get the places right, you have to get the clothing, the food, the dishes they're eating, the culture, everything right. So Google helps.
And correct. I mean, even when the couple in Jamaica want to go off for a weekend, you have the right place.
Exactly. You just Google as to where would you go from this place to that. It gives you 3 options.
Yeah.
What is 2 hours drive from this place? Because you needed the 2 hours for the conversation that was to happen on that journey. So you chose that White Sands beach.
So Tata Play has navigated the biggest shift in entertainment history, from DTH monopoly to competing with Netflix, Hotstar, and phone-first consumption. My father, for example, you know, he just says, my Tata Play box gives me all. You know, it's as simple as that. Why should I move from here to there? You know, so there are lots of consumers who are very, very loyal to Tata Play, and you know, they've got everything under one roof now. But honestly, what does quote unquote winning the consumer actually mean in the year 2026 when, like you said, attention is the new currency?
Well, attention is the new currency. But the fact still remains that a 3-hour, 32-minute film recently was one of the biggest grossers in the industry.
Yeah.
So where did that go? Where did the low, small attention spans go? So I don't think it's really the issue. Uh, it is not the attention span that is reducing, it is the quality of the content that needs to be good. If the quality of the content, if your product is good, the customer will buy. So somebody made a 3-hour, 32-minute good product and people paid 1,300 crores. This is without the GCC countries being in there. And he's coming out with a second version in March. And you'll probably, that 1,300 crores will become 2,000 crores this time. So the attention spans have not really reduced. Yes, what really happens is technology changes. You and I grew up with that big Murphy radio, which was plugged into the wall in our homes. From that to today, we've seen about 4 or 5 form factors in our lives, and we've adapted to each one of them, whether it was the radio to the transistor to the LP records to cassettes to CDs and now digital music. But the music's the same. It hasn't changed. What is the role of a distributor in that case? The role of the distributor really is to provide you the same things that you're used to watching in one format in another. So if the customer has moved from watching live TV and has some of the customers, not all, if some of the customers have moved from watching live television to be able to afford broadband and watch it when they want to watch, where they want to watch, then it is our job to aggregate the content on the tech platform where they can do that. That doesn't mean that if a motorcycle has been invented, doesn't mean that people will start buying cycles. If a car has been invented, doesn't mean that people will stop buying motorcycles. And if somebody's bought a private plane, the commercial airlines are not going bust.
Yeah.
So there are customers in every segment. So on one side, we are catering to people who are buying their first TV. There are 100 million homes who are yet to buy their first TV in this country. And on the other side, there are people who are tired of watching TV. They want to watch when they want to watch, what they want to watch. They want to pause and they want to start watching and they can afford it. So to them, we are doing OTT aggregation. And for the others, we're doing television aggregation.
Lovely. I've always felt that your leadership philosophy seems rooted in small town values. You know, good old middle class small town values, which is what I love. Collaboration, optimism, attitude over hierarchy. Though Neil, your character in Pivot, he starts off being a loner, you know. I wonder how growing up between Delhi, Roorkee shaped the way you built the CEO culture at Tata Play. The collaborate, experiment, own, speed.
It does. It did. It does. See, a lot of what we do and we grow old, the foundations of that have been set in your childhood. So at least the few years that I spent in Roorkee, I mean, I grew up largely in Delhi, but the few years that you spent in Roorkee, it was one little colony, one little lane on which there were some 15 houses. So if there was a wedding in somebody's family, the entire lane became the wedding venue. Guests were coming and sleeping in everybody's homes. Beds would be put in there. If there were death in the family, everybody's home was participating in the rituals. Or any festival was celebrated together. You didn't feel that this is somebody else's son and this is somebody else's daughter. Everybody belonged to each home. And life was so. And even today, I see that happening, though I live in Bombay and you probably don't even know your neighbor as well as you did then. And under every building, there is a little slum in Bombay. And you see what is happening in those slums. There is every festival that is celebrated as a community in those. You may say, why is this noise disturbing me? But when I see the joy amongst the people, it reminds me of my childhood. And I can bet you, some of the best leaders of tomorrow will come out of those slums, not in the buildings that we live in. Because we are like living in a very individualistic, solitary kind of growing up, they're living in community, collaborative. And that's what helps, if you ask me, when you build companies.
Very beautifully put. So, again, coming back to the books, in Adapt, what Harit does very beautifully is powerful real life stories from across the world to show why adapting or adaptation is survival. Now I'm going to flip that around. There are lots of stories. What's one that didn't make it? What's one personal or professional story of adapting that didn't make it into the book but still guides you every single day?
Well, the stories have not been written doesn't exist, so that's very clear. So we'll not talk about it. But the fact is that during adapt in the stories, if you see, everything does not succeed in the first attempt.
Yeah, true.
There's the adapting is the second step. Experimenting is the first step. So you test out new thing. New times force you to test out new things. Not every one of them will work, but you need to test out. Like somebody said, that I have not failed. I've now got to know of one more way that doesn't work. And in each story, you would see the protagonist kind of trying one method, second method, third method, and probably succeeding on the fourth. So, yeah, there are many things that didn't make it in this book also.
I love this particular thought, this quote of yours that says, rent people, not build careers. And indeed, Harit is
Most
famously.
misquoted, misunderstood quote
Yeah,
because
explain that.
people never read what followed the first line. The first line, and after that I've stopped writing clickbaity stuff.
Because people will just pick that out and put that
Yeah,
out.
everybody read the first one. I made it to Reddit. Can you beat it? A man at my age makes it to Reddit. And most people on Reddit said, but this is making sense. I said, fantastic, thank you very much. So,
Yeah, so, but honestly, if leaders give freedom to employees to bring their beliefs, their attitudes, it's so important. I mean, it leads to the flowering of an individual, not just an employee. In an industry as fast changing as media and entertainment, how do you balance giving people that freedom while still delivering consistent business results, is my question.
you see, my way of working has been, see, when you look back at your life, there are many people you worked for or influenced you. Some you liked what they did to you. Most you hated what they did to you. You actually learned more from the ones who you hated.
Wow.
But it requires courage to not do what they did to you. So you see, copying a hero is easy. Going against the grain of somebody who did something to you that you did not like is very difficult. I've actually spent most of my life thanking every morning the ones I hated, because you ended up doing things to people what they didn't do to you. And this was one of them. It's like giving people, because see, every time somebody asks you to do something, and every 2 hours he comes up to you and breathes down the neck and asks you the status update on, pal, do it yourself, no. That's you can't say that to your boss, but while he's doing that, breathing down your neck or asking you for 2 reviews a day or 2 reviews a week. But the fact is that you hate it. So you pick up good people, give them a direction, and let them go do it their way. And don't ask. That's the only way you will find new ways of doing old things. And that's the only way people will like working with you, because they've got the freedom,
Lovely.
which a lot of us didn't get when we were growing up.
So, storytelling runs through both your books, Pivot as well as Adapt. When you're facing a tough decision at the top, whether it's technology, investment, organizational change, how do you use stories to align your team and simplify the complexity?
Very easy. It's the only way to align teams, because When you visualized where you want to be, we are here, that's where you want to be. Everybody doesn't have the same blueprint, same vision of what you are visualizing. How do you create the same visual in the minds of the people who are going to help you get there? The only way of creating that visual in the minds of the people that this is our North Star, this is where we're aiming for, this is my aspiration, this should be our aspiration, is to use words or anecdotes that they can relate with and help them see the picture that you are seeing in your mind. Because that El Dorado doesn't exist. You are trying to make it. I mean, look at Shah Jahan's case. He visualized the Taj Mahal. Nobody had seen it. He visualized it. Now, to, to make every stone cutter, architect, contractor, laborer visualize the same Taj Mahal could have only been done through stories that he would have told. His next generation built the Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad. Go see that. That was a generation later, his son. It's not even a patch. So you can say that Shah Jahan was a great storyteller and Aurangzeb was not.
True. You spent 4 decades deeply understanding the Indian consumer, from soaps and snacks to satellite TV, now multi-platform entertainment. What fundamental shift in consumer behavior are most companies still missing, Harit, as India is moving or moved to this phone-first generation?
The only thing I see in abundance around me is technologies in search of customers. I have invented this product. Now, the customer needs to create a need to use it instead of it being the other way. Go to the customer, find out what his pain points are, go back to your R&D or a technology guy and say, hey, can you create something, your mumbo jumbo, whatever you may call it, and that'll help solve the need that this person has. And after that, when you go in with that product to the customer, you don't even need to advertise. You don't even need to tell. It'll be lapped up. I give the example of iPhone to anybody. Their reserves are equal to 3 or 4 countries put together probably. Why? Because he produced a product after figuring out a human need and then went back to technology and said, let me create something. However, most other products that you see around you are technologies in search of customers or needs. And that's the difference between successful and unsuccessful products.
I have to say that the book Adapt, if there's a bedrock of the stories, it is R&D, where a lot of the protagonists in the stories are actually saying, hey, maybe we should go and test this. Maybe we should look at consumer behavior. Maybe we should understand consumer behavior. That really is the bedrock, isn't it?
It is. That's the only way. Yeah. I mean, even today at this age, after having watched customers across 6 industries for 41 years, straight after this interview, I'm taking a flight to the coastal belt of Andhra Pradesh and spending the next 2 days walking villages from Vijayawada to Vizag.
Wow.
And would probably meet about 300 customers in the process. Not necessarily my customers. Could be anybody's customers. But that, staying in touch, spending a couple of days every month, meeting with these many people in villages, in remote places, actually gives you a sense of what you're producing, who you're producing for.
Lovely. I've noticed that all young leaders start off fearless, and then something happens. Either comfort takes over, or these lavish titles take over, or fear of disruption takes over. Looking back at that young Harit who started at Lakme, modest beginnings, what is one belief or habit that you'd urge today's ambitious professionals, future CEOs, to develop very early before all these things take over?
Yeah, there were two things that I've noticed that help you grow. Two, two things if you do in somewhere in your career, whatever opportunity, whenever you get an opportunity. First is if there's been a disaster somewhere which nobody is willing to touch, you volunteer to solve it. You know, anytime something is going down, sinking a region or a product or a company, and people started to say, oh, this is a disaster. If I go in there, I'll ruin my career. And I'm saying that's your opportunity to prove. Chances are you'll make it. At least it'll make it better than where it is. But you will learn more than what you learn in a stable job. And if you make it, you'll make a name for yourself. And it'll also give you the confidence that I can do it, and that is the most important piece. Or look around for those disasters around you and go plant a flag there and say, this is mine, I will turn it around. Give me a year, give me 2 years, this is mine. If you do that, your chances of catapulting are higher. The second is, there, at some stage in your life, whichever stage, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line, take a step back or take a lateral shift into another function, the function that you don't know. You may not get a promotion while doing that. You may be due for a promotion in what you're doing. And you may not get a promotion because guys would say, you don't know this function. How can I promote you and send you to a new function? Take a setback for 2 years in your life. What it'll do is, it'll give you a hands-on knowledge of another function. Because when you grow up to be a general manager or a senior manager, you're not working on one function. Your success is equal to how you make 2 or 3 functions collaborate with each other. And that you can only learn by doing another function which is different from what you were doing earlier. So you do one of these two, preferably both, in the first 15 years of your career. Then I think after that, you'll be kind of half unstoppable.
That's great advice. All you young leaders out there listening, that is Harit's mantra. So you said it's a 3-book deal. When is book 3 coming out?
I don't know. I'm dreading it, because the moment you take on a book, then your spare time goes for a task. Your reading habits go because instead of picking a book to read, you say, okay, let me write a few more lines. Your late nights, on a flight, you can't enjoy a movie because you say, okay, I've got solitude, let me write another 10 pages. So it's a task, and you can't stretch it for too long. Once you've started a book, then you want to finish it. So I'm dreading the starting point, but let's see.
Lovely. A business leader that you've worked with, who's really inspired you, and a business leader you haven't worked with and you wished you had worked with.
The one who I obviously didn't work with and I don't even think I could have, who's, like I mentioned earlier, would have been Steve Jobs. I mean, from what I see of the products that he's delivered, he's actually looked at the customer need, and then the detailing that he's gone into, the perfection that he's gone into, and the new way of delivering the same thing that he's created, not once but multiple times, requires discipline. And so that was one guy. People have had and I've had the chance of working with some very, very good people, very, very good people in my life who taught me. I mean, I was joking earlier saying that I worked with bad bosses. No, I haven't worked with many bad bosses. Most of them were good bosses. And each one taught me a lot.
Is there a name in particular?
Many. I mean, I would say briefly worked with Mrs. Tata, who recently passed away.
Yeah.
In my early days, the detailing that she had, the passion she had for what she was making. I remember walking into a room once, this was way back in 1990 or something like that. And I see her with one color of an eyeshadow on one eye and another color of an eyeshadow on the other. And I look at her and she says, don't look at me like that. I know what you're seeing. I did not make a mistake. They send me so many samples to try. I only have 2 eyes. But she would insist on trying
Oh,
everything that
lovely.
the company was producing. So she would put one eyeshadow on one and one on the other and live through that for full day. Now that's passion.
Amazing.
That's, that's commitment. So I mean, Mr. Chandrasekharan, who's the current chairman of the group, I mean, look at the vast role that he's handling. And then you look at the humility of the man
Yeah.
and the space that he gives you. Uh, Two extremes. That's,
The 3 decades that I've known you, I've always known you to be trim, never a tummy protruding. So, what is your secret mantra? Being a khata pita Punjabi, is still managing to
I'm
keep
still a
these foot
khata
trim.
pita Punjabi. I have to have a dessert at the end of every meal. That's something. But yeah, I compensate for it by, I walk.
Every day, huh?
Kind of, yes.
You just said you're going to rural Telangana, Andhra Pradesh.
That's for about a couple of days a month.
Couple of days a month. Your music choice, I remember it used to be a wonderful combination of international music and Punjabi music. Is it still that?
Everything, but strangely, I think we've discussed this earlier also, and my views are still the same. And you taught me that, given me the reason for why it is so. My music somehow stopped in 1985. My playlist still goes back to 85, 90, and before. Music that was produced. And I remember you once telling me about 15 odd years ago, saying that for anything to stick in your mind, you have to listen to it within 1 week, 8 or 10 times.
Correct. Yeah, I remember telling you that.
And before 1985, probably I had the luxury of listening to the same music 10 times in a week, and therefore it stuck here. And now I don't have that luxury of listening to something new for 10 times in the first week. And probably that's why it's not sticking. So that's,
So, this is called the Knowledge series. Knowledge to you is. Complete the sentence.
knowledge to me essentially is something, I'm a hands-on performer, so knowledge to me is something that I have tried out with my own hands or I've observed, and then I've synthesized the multiple options that I've seen, multiple ways of doing the same thing into my own way of doing it. So it's got DNA from 2 or 3 sources, and the final product may have resemblance to the first 2 or 3, but it's different from the first 2 or 3 that I've seen. That's really how you grow knowledge. Otherwise, it's repetition.
A book other than Adapt and Pivot that you really love and you'd like to recommend to audiences?
There are many. I'm just reading a book titled Money. See if you can find it. It explains the concept of money so beautifully, how it originated and how it became what it became, and how it is today what it is. Wow. The whole concept of money, it's a virtual concept, very beautifully narrated.
Travel destination, a place you went to and said, wow, this is so good.
Every one of them. The most recent experiences, I've just come back from Italy 3 days ago. We spent 9 days there.
Oh, lovely.
And so it was an opportunity to go watch the Winter Olympics. I had not watched any Olympics, so I said, "Theek hai, koi baat nahi, we'll do winter only. Tick box ho jayega." So we watched Winter Olympics in Milan and then spent another 4 days in Rome.
Did you go to Florence?
No, we did not. I'm old, so I don't hop cities. Wherever I go, I need to open my suitcase, hang the clothes, and live there for 4 days. Nothing less than 4 days in one city. Gone are the days when we would do one city a day. So, yeah, soaked in the city properly, walked. My phone says I've walked 110 kilometers in the 9 days that I was there. 110. So, but yeah, that's the only way you look around, you observe, you see the culture. There are 2 ways to know a city if you really want to know. I've always believed that. One is to speak to the taxi drivers. And the second is to listen to the local FM.
Ah, lovely.
And that tells you the vibe of the city. I don't know why FM is not so popular now. I wonder why. Because, the only time I get to listen to radio now is when I'm sitting in my car. The devices that carry radio are not there in the homes.
Correct.
They used to be there in your phone earlier, but the phone guys removed it. And I would urge whoever is listening to try and bring back those devices where radio can be around you all the time. I only get to listen to radio, but you don't get the vibe of the city. Even if I'm living in the city, the vibe of the city that I live in only comes from radio. There is nothing else that replaces it.
So beautifully put. In fact, we were discussing it this morning, my colleagues and myself, about the local flavor. A sports person who has really inspired you and why?
Sports people who've inspired me, there are many, but I'm an old-fashioned guy. So a guy like Sunil Gavaskar would.
Lovely.
He played great cricket, or a Rahul Dravid would. Played great cricket, coached people, comments now, and still agile and active. The temperament of the people is what makes them what they are. So Gavaskar at one end and Dravid on the other end would be my ideals.
Lovely. Listen, this has been an amazing conversation, always enriching and fun. You know how to keep it, and I wish you much love. Thank you for being on the Knowledge series, and most importantly, I can't wait for the third book.
Yeah, I love interviews where you don't know the questions beforehand. And this was one of them. Spontaneity is the best
Lovely.
form. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Harit.
Thank you.